Good evening. I'm Claire Kelly, Councilmember for the First Ward and Chair of the Administration and Public Works Committee for Evanston. I'd like to begin the meeting of Monday, September 9th at 5:06 p.m. And could you call the roll? Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Present.
Councilmember Newsma.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here. Great. We have a quorum. So we will go ahead and begin with approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. No abstentions. The minutes have been approved. We'll now move to public comment. We'll start with in-person sign-up. We have Lenny Asaro.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lenny Asaro. Last name is Asaro. I reside at 615 Judson Avenue. I am actually here on behalf of my client, Kennedy Constructing Corporation. And with respect to Kennedy, we submitted, or my law firm submitted a letter to the Corporation Counsel's office. Good evening, Corporation Counsel, how are you? Submitted a letter to the Corporation Counsel's office yesterday morning, afternoon, with respect to the lead pipe replacement program. It is a matter that's on the City Council agenda. Staff has recommended that the contract be approved by the City Council on the City Council portion of the meeting, and I believe it's before this particular committee. I sent that letter to the Corporation Council, as well as I copied the City Manager. It's my understanding that our letter was also transmitted to all the City Council members. I believe about an hour or so ago, the Corporation Counsel's office, again, thank you very much, Corporation Counsel, provided a written response to that particular letter. I've only had it for about an hour or so. And I would like, to make a formal request that we be given an opportunity to respond to the letter in writing, unless, of course, there is a stated urgency to take up the particular staff recommendation regarding the contract today. And based on my information and belief that there is no such urgency, but we would respectfully request an opportunity to respond in writing. If that opportunity is not given to us, the best that I can do is only address a couple of points that I believe raises additional questions that we would just respectfully ask this committee and the City Council to consider in light of the differential of a contract that could be let, where the state of Illinois, through their Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, is prepared to grant the city of Evanston $1 million for the lead pipe replacement program. My client, Kennedy Constructing Company, submitted a bid, and their bid was the lowest bid at $1.1 million. So the City Council has before itself a decision whether or not, and staff recommended the second lowest bid at $1 million, I believe it's $1.3 million. So it's about a $200,000 difference. And the $200,000 difference would have to be paid by the City of Evanston, and thus all of us taxpayers. So what we're respectfully requesting is that this particular committee table the decision on this contract until it has all of the facts and all of the information in order to make a decision. And we've made it crystal clear that Kennedy Constructing
10
Company.
seconds. Sorry,
Yes.
I'm keeping everyone to 3 minutes.
Yes, is not threatening, nor will it be taking any legal action against the city. All that we ask is a procedural and substantive due process on the matter, because there are factual and legal issues at bear. And the statute that was cited in the letter from the Corporation Counsel raises legal questions. And given the compacted time that I have here, it's really difficult to address this with any merit.
Thank you. I just, it's public comments, so everyone's restricted to 3 minutes or less, but I appreciate it, and we do have your letter. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, with respect to public comment, then, just so that I can maximize our time, I would like for my client, Ryan Kennedy.
Sure, Ryan Kennedy is next.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And Chair, just briefly, I plan to remove this from consent agenda if it isn't already. I think I have to remove it. And so I will ask questions and bring you up during that to speak. So
Thank you very much,
Just so you-
Alderman. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, Ryan Kennedy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Kennedy. I'm the Vice President at Joel Kennedy Constructing. We were the lowest bidder on the lead service project. I appreciate, Bobby, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this. And obviously, we will discuss it further, so I'll keep my comment pretty short. I do think we submitted a responsive bid by pretty much any guideline, state or city you could possibly imagine. And being that it is potentially going to save the city almost $200,000, I just respectfully request that you take a look at all the facts, take a look at the bid process, the bid document, what exactly that says, and then what exactly we submitted and proposed to do. And potentially also our track record in working with the city, saving Evanston money, hiring Evanston residents, always complying with your goals and your priorities as a local contractor. And I just appreciate it if, as you guys have been doing, if you just take the time to really dig into this one and make the decision that's best for the city. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, next we have John Quayle. Good evening.
Howdy. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to comment today. My name is John Quayle. I live at 2535 Ridgeway. I'm a resident of the 6th Ward. Today I'm talking about item number A10, the Memorandum of Understanding that will hopefully result in a new river access point at the Evanston Ecology Center. First, I'm a big proponent of providing opportunities like this. These kind of opportunities will provide Evanstonians a way to get out into nature in a healthy way that improves quality of life. The healing power of nature and exercise is well documented, and this facility really provides that in a great way. The proposed facility provides boats like canoes, kayaks, and paddleboards access to, in my opinion. I've paddled in the North Shore Channel for about 20 years. As long as I've been a resident of Evanston, some of the best sections of the North Shore Channel for kayaking, the 2.5 miles from Emerson to the Baha'i Temple offers views you really don't find anywhere else, really unique unicorn views. Then they have natural banks with thriving plant communities that support habitat for things like beavers, minks, and turtles, fish like northern pike. It's one of the few spots in the river system that supports little brown bats, really speaks to the ecosystem improvements that have taken place there over the years. The banks are mostly gradual and allow for really easy egress if you in an emergency. There's no waves. It doesn't have temperature and traffic issues like Lake Michigan. And there's 2 curves in that section that really provide changing views. So you're not just looking at the same thing when you're paddling back and forth. So it's really a great place for a canoe launch. This section, like I said, this section is really accessible for all levels of paddlers, from beginners to very experienced paddlers. It's great to see the facility design also includes multiple access options for people of all different abilities. That's something that's very rare. I would say there are almost no other canoe, kayak, paddleboard launch points that have drop-off, parking, launch, ramp considerations to allow access for people with all different types of abilities. I'm a huge supporter of increasing all different forms of fuel power access to our waterways. And I know there's some concerns about crew team access. Rest assured, crew teams have an amazing facility, the Damage Rowing Center, located at Oakton. It's in the center of a 4-mile dead straight stretch of the North Shore Channel that goes all the way from Devon to Beck Park in Evanston. And accessing the North Shore Channel at that place can be very intimidating for any paddler, especially if you were a beginner. So this new facility would address those concerns and would be welcoming to North Shore Channel users. And that, like I said, that's really unique on the North Shore Channel in almost the entire Chicago River system. So I work in waters for a living, so I'm pretty familiar with the Clean Water Act and things like that. The North Shore Channel is what's called the waters of the U.S., so that means it's waters for all of us, for the use and enjoyment by all of us.
Thank
and
you.
I think this facility really accomplishes that, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Amy Heidemann.
Hello. My name is Amy Heldman. I am a senior planner at Friends of the Chicago River, and I'm here to share our support for the proposed North Shore Channel canoe launch in Evanston. This project is greatly aligned with our mission to protect and restore the Chicago-Calumet River system for all people, water, and wildlife. Evanston has long been a champion for the river as an important ecological and recreation resource in its community, and this project opens the river even more to your residents. Our vision is to see the entire 156-mile Chicago-Calumet River system flourish as a healthy, biodiverse, climate-resilient ecosystem with equitable open access for all. The Chicago-Calumet River system has seen remarkable restoration and revitalization over the past 40 years, sparking a surge of interest from a diverse range of river enthusiasts. Friends continues to invest in improving the health and the accessibility of the river system, including along the North Shore Channel. Friends is dedicated to a widespread equitable public access to ensure everyone can access the river. Among other projects, volunteers for Friends and the Shed Aquarium have created new habitat by planting thousands of native Illinois shoreline plants along the river edge. Friends has also partnered with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources to install structural habitat and release thousands of channel catfish and northern pike into the channel to take advantage of all the newly created habitat. The proposed new canoe launch relates perfectly with our goals, offering a welcoming gateway for paddlers of all abilities, incomes, and levels of experience. Expanding recreational access in this location not only enhances the enjoyment of our river system, but also fosters a deeper connection between residents and the unique ecological river corridor. That connection is good for public health, the local economy, and contributes to a high quality of life for residents. We commend the project's design, which incorporates universal access principles, features an assisted kayak launch area, preserves existing trees, and adds back native plants that are essential to river edge habitat. This thoughtful approach reflects a commitment to inclusivity and environmental stewardship of the Evanston Environmental Center and aligns with Friends' values and vision for our river system. Beyond recreation, water trails offer significant economic benefits. According to the Outdoor Industry Association's National Recreation Economy Report, Americans participating in water sports contribute over $174 billion to our economy. By supporting this canoe launch, we are investing in both the well-being of our community and the economic vitality of our region. We urge you to support the North Shore Channel canoe launch as it represents a pivotal opportunity to enhance recreational access, promote ecological health, and benefit the river corridor. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, that concludes public comment for this evening. At this point, would any of the council members like to pull off any items? So far, we have taken off the consent agenda, items A6, A8, A9. A9 was placed in error on the agenda, so that will be discussed at council, and A10.
I move the.
But I think Councilmember Burns, did I get the
It was
item?
A6.
That's A6,
Yeah, I
okay.
think you got it. Yep.
So we're all set? Okay.
So I'll move the consent agenda minus those items.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded and approved. So we now go to, would somebody please like to?
I'll move item A6, contract award with Boulder Contractors for the 2024 lead service line private side replacement pilot project.
And I will second that.
Okay, this has been moved and seconded. Councilmember Newsma?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We exchanged some emails on this earlier with Councilmember Burns and with staff. Would somebody from staff, I'm looking at Attorney Ruggie, if that's going to be you, to kind of walk us through the process and explain the rationale behind staff's recommendation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Newsma. For the record, Alex Ruggie, Corporation Counsel. Good evening, Chair Kelly, members of APW committee. So this project, the city applied for a grant from the state of Illinois DCEO to undergo the lead pipe replacement. The city was awarded the grant and then went out to bid the project. Part of the agreement that the city signed with the state of Illinois to obtain this grant funding is to agree to the state's BEP, Business Enterprise Program goals of 28%. So the city worked with the state of Illinois. We asked them, what if we don't get any bids in response that meet the 28%? And they said, well, if that's the case, we can address that at that time. And the city would have to work around that. But the state of Illinois said, based on our location here in Evanston and the scope of the project, they felt very confident that we would get a bid meeting the goals. And then the city went out for RFP on this project. There was an addendum to the RFP, and one of the questions asked was, and this addendum was provided to all applicants. It says, this project has an overall BEP goal of 28%, with 18% of grant dollars going to MBEs and 10% going to WBEs. Will Evanston accept a waiver if the goals are not possible to meet? The city's response was no. If goals cannot be met, clear documentation of good faith efforts should be provided, including copies of bid solicitations, how bid solicitations were made to known BEP vendors, proof of additional repeated outreach to BEP vendors, phone and email logs, and specific valid reasons for either not accepting their bid or for BEP vendors declining to bid. So the city requested specific allocations to any applicant that could not meet the 28% BEP goal. It's my understanding from staff in purchasing that that was not included in the lowest bid that we are discussing. And then the second lowest bid, however, did meet the BEP goals. The state of Illinois also advised that if the city were to seek a waiver of the BEP goals, if we were legally able to do that and the city was granted a waiver, the grant would be reduced by $280,000 for not meeting that goal. So the city would lose out on $280,000 of the grant award. So when the city looked at this project, it was financially the best situation for the city to accept the second lowest bid that actually met the state's 28% goal, and that's what the city did.
Just point of information, just for the public, there's some acronyms you used, like
Exactly
here we
what
call
I
it
was gonna say.
MWB, but minority business, women-owned businesses, just for our reporters and the public.
Thank you.
So it was 18% MBE, minority-owned contractors, and 10% WBE.
Yes.
And the state refers to that as a business enterprise program, so that's where the BEP comes from.
Right, and so, and it's the state is establishing this 28% goal, and it's actually a 28% requirement, it sounds like.
Yes.
Especially given the fact that at least some of the contractors were able to meet this goal.
That's correct. We had multiple bidders that were able to meet that goal.
And, from the correspondence that a copy of which I saw earlier, our staff had kind of anticipated this very conversation, been in touch with DCEO, like what is involved with this waiver process, and provided the information that you were able to convey to us tonight. So my understanding is if we applied for the waiver and got the waiver, we'd lose the $280,000?
That's correct. And we were advised that it would be highly unlikely a waiver would be granted.
And so that's a key point.
Yeah.
That bears repeating.
Yeah, and I think because we got bidders that were able to meet the 28% business enterprise program goals, that would not go towards the city's favor of being given a waiver.
Right. So the Joel Kennedy Company's done great work for the city over the years. We hope to be able to continue working with them on future projects. In this case, by my math, their bid was the lowest by $190,655. If that amount were significantly greater than the $280,000 that we would lose by moving in that direction, the math would make sense. But by my reading, I think the staff recommendation is the right one. That's all I have. So over to Councilmember Burns.
Councilmember Burns.
Before I get into it, any hard deadlines with this at all? Is there a reason why, if we held this or table it to the next meeting, would staff have any concerns?
I would like to defer that to the project manager, Paul Maiano.
Paul's the one who anticipated this question, so thank you, Paul, for the homework.
You're welcome. Hello, council members. As far as the deadline, there is no hard deadline that I'm aware of. We're just anxious to get started with the work before weather changes so that we could start replacing lead service lines. But I don't know of any hard deadline at this point.
Okay. I think it's worth, tabling this to our next meeting, even if it's just to make sure that all parties are clear on what happened, why it happened. If there were mistakes made, I think it's important to get clarity around this. The first question I have, though, and Paul, I think I'm good for now.
Thank you.
The first question I have is, so Council Ruggie, you mentioned that there was information that needed to be submitted if a contractor was not able to meet the BEP requirements, and that was direction that the city of Evanston provided to the contractors who bid on in an addendum to the original bid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're saying that they did not complete that information? They didn't provide that information?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so whoever wants to respond to that, either Ryan from Joe Construction or attorney, is it Asaro? And just to set this up properly, I know from conversations with you that there was certainly an explanation as to why, I assume based on our conversations that you did provide an explanation as to why you couldn't meet the BEP requirements. Now, whether or not you responded to everything in that checklist, I'm not sure. There was quite a few things that it seemed like you needed to respond to. So I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, sure. So through the DCO grant and the BEP guidelines, there's a checklist, a packet that explains everything that they're looking for you to do. So you're reaching out to assist agencies, try to identify contractors, reaching out to individual contractors, really doing everything possible to locate as many people as you can who could potentially do this work. These goals, I think, were set in 2023 when the grant agreement was sent. And after the original bid document came out, there was some further experience requirements, specifically to like the drilling of the lead services. Pretty tight, tough, complicated work. The city on addendum 2 changed the experience requirement to make it a little bit tougher. So you had to have done, I think it was 1,500 feet of lead service drilling in the last 3 years, which you would think, right, would shift the pool of subcontractors maybe available, but obviously the grant percentages didn't change at that time. But we still did everything possible, we thought in our mind, to meet the goal. And we really went through the checklist, had attorneys going through the checklist, really worked hard at this for about a month and put everything together. There's a whole list of things you can do, including at the very end, you can submit other documentation. Submit any other documentation the bidder offer believes will help the procurement officer ascertain its good faith efforts. One of the things we actually threw in this project was, there's no LEP requirement. You didn't have to hire Evanston residents on this job. We said, as a show of good faith, even though we can't meet the MBWB goals, we will follow the LEP requirement. We will hire and employ Evanston residents for 15% of the work hours. Again, so we're trying to be within the guidelines of the bid, right, and follow everything that they said, and also help Evanston by saving them $200,000, by employing Evanston residents, by doing the job we thought would be on time, under budget. So we really looked hard at it, and I'm a little bit confused because up until 2 minutes ago, I had never heard that anyone has actually reviewed our good faith efforts document. At one point, it sounded like the city was supposed to send it in. We believed, like we put it in our bid package before the bid, the city would send it to the state. We received a letter an hour ago that said the vendor was supposed to send it to the state, which didn't really make any sense. In that case, I guess we could send it to the state now. Like if this was supposed to be in our bid though, and you can't change things in your bid, that statement didn't really add up. So we've just been really, really confused about the process. There's been no transparency the whole time. I mean, the bid says you can submit good faith efforts. To this point, as far as we know, no one's even reviewed the efforts. So from day one, we had zero shot, and we thought we followed, the contract. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, just to amplify, sure. And just to follow up on a couple points that Ryan made. So first of all, the letter that we got about an hour ago from the Corporation Counsel's office, and I appreciate Corporation Counsel's description of what transpired, sort of the timeline. So point number one is that the letter makes no reference to the statement that the grant agreement has been signed or what the grant agreement terms and conditions are. That would be really helpful to understand, because one of the first things that when Kennedy Construction came to us, the first thing that we asked is, what is the agreement between the state and the city of Evanston? What does it require? What does it restrict? What does it limit? Because that's the governing document, right? Between the state agreeing to grant $1 million for this project and what is required of Evanston. What's required regarding the bid documentation, what's required if there are questions that are asked by a potential vendor, a variety of different things. And we haven't seen that agreement. We haven't seen the application, and we've searched, and Ryan has searched. That would be really helpful, because that's the governing document. And if that governing document states that the city of Evanston cannot get the $1 million for this project, that's an important fact and legal determination for all of us to know. But we don't know. That was not mentioned in the letter. One of the other items that was mentioned here is that there was a statement about the question was asked of the state, if the city does not receive responsive bids, then what should they do in that instance? That was presented to DCO as a question. We have no idea when that was submitted, but DCO's answer that, well, we know or understand Evanston, so you should be able to meet it. Again, what do the governing documents say? What do the agreements say? I don't think that the grant agreement says, Evanston, I think that you're going to just be able to meet it because you're Evanston, right? As Ryan indicated, there are very specific, in some instances, very technical details with respect to the drilling in this particular instance that he mentioned. The next point that was made was that the city stated if the goal cannot be met, then the respondent must demonstrate how and why they cannot meet the goals. I believe Kennedy Constructing did provide that information.
And if we can hold there for a second, because the way that I heard it, and I have an email as well, it says clear documentation of good faith efforts should be provided, including copies of bid solicitations, how bid solicitations were made known to BEP vendors, proof of additional repeated outreach to BEP vendors, phone and email logs, and specific valid reasons for either not accepting their bid for BEP vendors. So do you feel like you submitted all that information to the city?
100%. And again,
can we, maybe Paul, I do need you up here one more time at least. I think Paul was the project manager for this.
Yes.
And Paul, if you can speak to that, and there's a few other points to this, but after Paul, if everybody's comfortable tabling this to the next meeting, because I can go into a lot of detail. I've talked to somebody at DCO, so I have information to provide there, but this could take a little bit to fully explain. And so if everybody's cool with holding off until the next meeting so we can work through this, I'm happy to hold my comments and wait until that meeting. But if you're not, we can do it.
So what's the question?
It was said, I think, by Council Ruggie, and correct me if I mischaracterize what you said, that they did not respond to the addendum in a satisfactory manner.
Well, the addendum asked, or the question that was addressed in the addendum was, will we accept a waiver? And we responded that we would not accept a waiver to the BEP requirements.
But it also says that you can provide. So why do they need to provide all that information? What was that for?
So the concern was, while we were bidding the project, whether or not we would get bidders that were able to meet the BEP requirements. And if we did not get any bidders that were able to meet the BEP requirements, we had discussion with DECO that they would work with us to try to figure something out to keep the project moving forward. So since we said that we would not accept waivers, and we did get 2 bids that could meet the BEP requirements, we considered the bids that met the BEP requirements when doing our thorough review.
Okay, so this is just saying we're not accepting waivers,
Correct.
BEP waivers on this. But if no one can meet the requirements, then this information that you've asked for would be useful.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to hold there because I know Councilmember Reed wants to get in on this too.
Councilmember Reed?
Thank you. One, I'll just say I don't know if all of us have lead pipes in our communities, and we want to get those changed out as soon as possible. So I'm just not understanding, Councilmember Burns, the usefulness of the hold at this point, given they cannot amend. I appreciate the good faith effort. I like that. And I think for me, that would have been the bid that I would have gone with if we didn't have the other bids that did meet the requirements. But we still could, but then lose out on $280,000. Go ahead.
No, I think I somewhat disagree with that statement. And even today, it's 280. The fact that you might lose $280,000, I don't think that had ever been discussed or mentioned. We don't see that anywhere again in the program documents or guidelines. In fact, other situations with other cities who receive DCEO grants, if the low bidder at times has not met the applicable goals, oftentimes cities work with them to add additional subcontractors so that they can save additional funding, right? So in a scenario in which our bid was low, maybe we were $1 million, but the second bidder was $3 million. I don't think the city would be willing to just say, "Oh, you didn't make good faith efforts. We're just not going to, we're just going to forget about your bid." Other municipalities who are budget conscious will work with people, and you can add people to your job. It happens in other cities, so it's you can still save the $200,000.
Councilmember Reed, just another point too. Like we're talking 2 weeks. We're talking a couple of weeks or whatever the time period is. What's really important is it's really the $190,000 question, and that is there are more questions than answers with regards to what you've heard, and the $190,000 question is, if taking a look at all the facts and the law, and we haven't been able to address a couple things, what that means is that you'll still have the project, is that you'll have the project potentially approved in 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll still get you could still potentially get the $1 million, plus you'll be able to go with the lowest bid at $1.1 million. And so that's, we're not certainly advocating for a delay to replace lead pipes, which is important for longer, but we think it's important enough that at least for a couple of weeks, because we certainly didn't have any of the information, to Ryan's point, about the $200,000 potential loss. We had no idea about. But the other point that was just raised about the process that the assistant city manager mentioned, he indicated that they were asked, will we accept a waiver? And the city said no. Will the city accept a waiver? And the city said no. The reason why that's an important fact is because the letter that we just got an hour ago said, if you wanted to seek a waiver, which we disagree with the interpretation, but it said that we as the vendor needed to submit a waiver request to the state. So I don't get it. If this letter an hour ago said, if you wanted a waiver, then you were supposed to submit it, shifting the burden, which I take issue with the interpretation of that particular section of the statute. I don't think it applies that the way that it was interpreted. But assuming the city's statement that we were responsible as the vendor, to you, the city, were required to seek a waiver from the state with whom we're not entering into a contract, those two things are inconsistent. So if that was the case, then it could have been stated in the bid documentation. And on page 10 of the bid package, there's no statement stating that the bid incorporates the state of Illinois statute that's referenced in this letter, and that all bids that are submitted must comply and are subject to the statute that's referenced in this letter. And this letter refers to a waiver process. So it's one or the other.
Thank you. Council, or either Council Ruggie or Paul, my understanding is one that someone can't amend their bid after it's been submitted. That's correct. I see Council Ruggie, but if
Yeah, that's correct.
okay, and I understand. I hear you on some maybe confusing or competing facts that have been presented, but I still don't see how that changes the outcome of this. Even if we did get it all sorted out, they couldn't amend their bid, so the only option would be to rebid, it seems, or can I get Council Ruggie to?
I apologize. Can you repeat your question?
So what would if we were to grant them this 2 weeks, what do we foresee changing? Do we see them amending the bid, which we just established could not happen?
Personally, from my perspective, legal has looked into this. We've coordinated with the state of Illinois. We've coordinated with Public Works. At this time, I don't see any change, and I don't see any way in which this changes the outcome.
Thank you. And Councilmember Burns, can just from your perspective, since you plan on making the motion to hold, do you want to, what is your?
Yeah, I think more so what I'm trying to sort out than whether or not we can do anything here. Maybe ultimately, no matter what, the award goes to Boulder, but I think it's important that we have a clear process that's easy for contractors to follow. What I'm reading right here in this response, and I'm assuming that this was pulled directly out of the bid, but it says no if goals cannot be met. It just goes right into if goals cannot be met. It doesn't say no, we're not going to accept any waivers, right? In the case that, no one is able to satisfy the requirements, then clear documentation of good, right? So this is not clear at all. If this is what was in the bid, this is not clear. I could easily read this and feel like you're explaining to me what I need, the information I need to provide if I can't meet the goals, and that's what they did. So it feels like the process was confusing. That it seemed like someone could request a waiver, could show good faith effort. They also went a step further and provided an alternative, a substitute to the minority contracting by deciding to instead adopt our own local hiring policy, which would employ Evanston residents. Mind you, the minority contracting, which is a great program by the state, we're going to get someone out of Evanston. It's a contractor out of Evanston. What they suggested as a substitute was to hire Evanston residents to work on the job. So the way this was described, I think, in the bid made it seem like there was this opportunity to provide an alternative, to submit a waiver. And what we found out, even from my conversations with DCO, is they said just straightforward, we've seen a lot of quite a few requests for waivers, and none of them have ever been approved. That's probably information that we should have provided to the contractors up front. It sounds like we tried to do it in the addendum. If this is the language, that doesn't communicate that to me clearly, and I don't think it would communicate that clearly to any contractor. Also, what DCO said is that for them, they would accept. When you read the guidelines, there's this distinction between they want a certain percentage minorities, certain percentage women-owned. From talking to someone at DCO, they said that they would accept either or, even if they could comply with it by a women-owned business, that they would accept that. They would also be fine if they went back out and not to change the price, although they really didn't have any opinion on that, but to try to find a minority contractor to work with. So this came from DCO. And so I don't think the only option is to request a waiver. There are other options that DCO has provided, and I think it's up to to this body to decide what we do. I'm also just curious. Just one last question: is it our own procurement process that says we can't go out, that we can't reopen bids? Because I know other cities do it, and that's just for my own. Because it's not, from talking to the state, they said it's not a state thing. Would be a local, that would be in our own local procurement process, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just want to know where you seem to respond to that very definitively. I'm just wondering where that comes from.
Is that not a substantive due process to give everyone fair opportunity?
I think that definitely plays into it. The city has a purchasing manual that I'm most familiar with. I'm not familiar with the state's guidelines. They have to follow the State Procurement Act, but the city follows its own purchasing guidelines.
Right. Yeah, I was just saying, I would imagine that because the state, for their procurement process, they allow a 10-day cure period for certain reasons.
Well, yeah, I think that would have to be stated up front so everyone knows they have a 10-day
For sure,
cure
yeah,
period, and
yeah.
it's not just ad hoc. Okay, well, thank you for that, Councilmember Burns. What I'm getting is the process needs to be improved. We need more clarity, but I still don't see how a hold will help us with that. And again, I appreciate the good faith effort, and to me, it's appealing. But it seems like even that wouldn't matter. I'm probably not going to have any more questions at this moment for you all. But it seems like that wouldn't matter to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity if they were going to hire Evanston residents. And so I don't know if that would even play into the potential for a waiver. And I just also want to remind us that it is important to, especially in this space, for more women and more people of color to gain access to this space. So in the, infamous words of the now great senator from Utah, I would encourage you to get binders full of women and minorities and make sure that you have them ready for when you're making these kinds of bids. With that, I don't think I would support the hold at this moment. And I'm looking forward to more folks throughout our city having clean, safe, lead-free drinking water. Thank you.
Okay. Council Burns.
Can I say one more thing?
Somebody else
sorry.
has a
I apologize.
floor next, I
Councilmember
believe.
Nusma.
Thank you. So picking up on Councilmember Reed's suggestion to create a binder, I would encourage you to look to the city's Public Works Department. And one thing we at the city have done is set up a program as part of our workforce development commitment to hire folks into public works to get them some skills in this kind of thing, to create a workforce that, one outcome of which is they keep working for the city for 20 years. That'd be great. Another outcome of which is that they set up their own company and could be a subcontractor for you and your competitors in exactly this type of work. So that was one point I wanted to make. Another point I wanted to make was picking up on the drilling and the tight requirements to find a drilling subcontractor. And that may be true. I won't dispute that fact, but there are any number of other subcontractors that could also be brought in to meet this requirement. And indeed, that's what the recommended recipient has done. They have met this requirement by retaining a concrete subcontractor, landscaping, traffic control, trucking and hauling, and plumbing. So there's other ways to meet that requirement than just the drilling. And then to underscore what Councilmember Reed said, even if you guys could apply for a waiver, let's say you could, because you've done your due diligence, you can show you've tried. Even if you were successful in that and we awarded you the project in saving $190,000 on that, on the project cost, we'd be forfeiting $280,000 in the grant from DCEO. So it's in the city's best interest to follow staff's recommendation. So I'm in favor of moving this forward. If this could have been made more clear, I think everyone would be happier at this point, but staff, Attorney Ruggie and the engineer Paul Moyano have done their homework, and I'm prepared to follow their recommendations. So,
I just one question, and then Ryan has something to say. There actually is a solution to this. There is a solution, and what I haven't heard yet is, and this solution I'm putting on the table. Write to DCEO, explain the facts and circumstances, and ask this very specific question. Based on the facts and circumstances of this bid and the responses, will DCEO grant us the $1 million if we go with the lowest bidder at $1.1 million? That's a very simple question to ask, and it shouldn't take very long to get an answer to that question. That is, at the end of the day, what we are asking for. Simply, I have heard no one say that they have provided all this information to DCEO and had them weigh in, because they're the ones that control the $1 million. And if they say, City of Evanston, you're authorized to hire the lowest bidder at $1.1 million and you get the $1 million, then this is all a moot point. That is a way how you don't lose how you don't get a deduction that was referenced, is by simply asking that question directly to the grantor, the state of Illinois. And that's what I respectfully request. And Ryan had one other point.
I think it seems like that question has been answered. So with that, I'm gonna yield my time back to the chair.
Just similarly, if in a lot of situations like this, the easier solution is to rebid the project, because on this rebid, you still get the $1 million grant. We now know that a waiver is not accepted, which I swear to you, we did not know, because we read the documents and it didn't inform us of that. We will give the same bid, and you get the $1 million and you save $200,000. And it takes an extra few weeks. This project is 100 lead services, which should take 50 working days. I believe the project completion is supposed to be in June. This work can be done in the winter. We've done them all winter for the last 3 years. So by taking a few weeks, you'll save a few $100,000, and every bidder will know the exact same set of rules, instead of this time where it seems to be changing every few days.
Thank you. Councilmember Burns?
I think the only note I have at this point is if again, and maybe should confirm this, is do you know the exact language, Council Ruggie, that was in the bid, the addendum? Is it what was provided to me in an email?
It is. It's exactly what I read.
Okay. We just gotta. It's just that's not clear. I mean, it's just it doesn't read the way I think it was intended to, and it changes everything, especially now that we know that waivers never get granted, right? This is coming from DCO, that they've seen. Guy said, I've been working here a while. There's people who have made requests that never approved. And then also what I learned is, oh, wow, I'm missing my thoughts. Who's next? I'm missing my thoughts. Sorry.
Councilmember Harris? We'll come back to you.
Good evening. I don't think it was ambiguous. We said no, right? We said we would not accept the waiver, correct?
There was like 3 sentences. It wasn't just no. Yeah.
Well, that's the information I needed, because what's confusing is it just says no, but then it goes on right directly after to explain
The process. Right?
how, the process to.
Right. But no
Request a
was
waiver.
the leading word, no.
But they're contradictory
Right.
points being made.
But-
one is yes, you can, and the other is no, you can't.
I think my understanding, and that's just my assumptions, no is no. But here, if you want to provide these documents, it's still no. But if you have these documents to say X, Y, and Z, if we need that, to me, I took it as an if-then statement more than okay, we might make a change. It's in our minds, we were clear. They told us no, and we shouldn't have, but we did. But the no didn't change because of an if-then. It just allowed people the opportunity that if we fell into a place that we couldn't meet the threshold, then we might be able to do that. That's my understanding. So I get it. I'm not a lawyer. I play one on TV, but I'm not a lawyer. But that's my understanding.
You're the lucky one between you.
Yeah, and I remember I would have just said no, then just say no, or explain why you're providing the additional information, right? That's how you complete the thread.
Well, but it saves time if we find ourselves in a predicament instead of going back and forth. I understand the confusion. As a parent, as an educator, no is no. We lead with no.
I get to
so.
know, but you have to explain why the other information was provided, because this is a bid, right? This is a professional bid. This isn't an informal kind of off the cuff conversation. This is you providing instruction to companies, who are bidding on a project. So I think we have to be clear. The last thing that I forgot that I wanted to say is there's actually a separate agency also found this out. It's not DCO that authorizes the waiver. There's like some separate agency that has a panel and they decide. And they said, I asked them, how long does that take? And they said it could take upwards of 3 months. So fortunately, there's no one we can call at DCO or email at DCO to say, hey, can you give us a quick response on this? The only thing they're willing to say at this point is, I've never seen a waiver granted. And there's a separate agency that takes 3 months to provide, rulings on this, which is why I'm just saying, if we're going to, and the only reason why I'm going to this extent is I think we're going to do this again. We have quite a bit of lead, for those who don't know, and we have a certain amount of time where we have to replace all the lead in Evanston. So that's why we're taking this much time talking about this. I would imagine we're going to get another grant from DCO at some point. And so I'm just saying on the next one, just let's make it crystal clear for all those who bid on the project. And I'll hold my comments there. I'm not going to make any motion to table or hold this.
I'm also, thank you, Councilmember Burns, for looking so deeply into this. I am concerned if the full parameters of the bid were not made apparent to the bidder. And that's what I'm hearing, that there wasn't clear understanding of that. So that does concern me, that process. It sounds to me like it was implied, the DCO requirements were implied, and then later it was stated otherwise through the bid. And so I am concerned that, about the process here. And, so I'm also, I'm reviewing this. I know frequently we've hired firms on the basis of being able to better meet our MWBE requirements, and then later they haven't. I'm going to assume that this process is much more stringent in assurance. Okay. So, I don't think I have the support here, but I don't like to think that somebody went in on this, took the time, and that the parameters were not clear on a bid. So, I don't think there's. I would like to see this. I would like to take more time to understand the wording, and if it was in fact misleading or not, I would like to take that time. But I don't think I have anybody here to delay this for a hold to examine this.
Can't hold it.
We can't table. It would have to be.
You can table it, but you can't hold it.
Yeah, we don't have the support here. So I think we do have to be really careful and make sure that everything is, that anybody who fulfills our bid requirements is really fully informed, and that there aren't, it sounds to me like potentially it was implying requirements, crediting the DCOE with these requirements when in fact it was simply the cities and some confusion. So, Councilmember Reed.
Just very quickly, and not to belabor this point anymore, because I think we should vote on this and move on. But again, from what I'm hearing is the answer was get your minority and women contractors, get your stuff in order, because we're probably not going to accept your bid if you don't have that in order. And that's everything that I've gleaned from this conversation. And I think anyone who went through it, should have made their best effort to do that. And if you couldn't meet that effort, then this shouldn't be a surprising outcome. All right.
Okay. Any more comments? Okay, with that. Guess we'll move, take a vote. Yeah. Roll call.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
No. Okay, that passes with a vote of 4-1, and now we move to
right.
the
I'll
next
move item A8, approval of special event for the Evanston Main Street Fall Fest.
I will second that.
Sure.
And I will ask Dan Coyne and/or Catherine Godsick from Lighthouse Rotary Club and Main Dempster Mile, respectively, to share some of this good news with us. And I want to just set the context here. We are finally done, or at least almost done, with the Main Street construction project. A lot of the streets are open. Traffic is flowing. It's going to take a little bit of time to get the lights and the signs, and we're going to do the raised crosswalk at some point in the future. But it's been a difficult several years on Main Street, coming out of the pandemic, when it was tough enough for the businesses, and then a water main project, and then a gas project, and then the street. He said, we're finally done. I am looking forward to celebrating the end of this arduous process with the Main Street Fall Fest in October, which is hopefully a harbinger of even better news to come. So over to you guys to just tell us how awesome it's going to be.
Chair Kelly, members of the committee, I'm Catherine Godsick. I'm the executive director of the Main Dempster Mile, and indeed, Main Street is glorious now. It's made of sparkles and stars. Please come and visit Main Street. And Main Dempster Mile has set aside some funding, and our partners at Lighthouse Rotary have generously joined us to host a Welcome Back to Main Street Fall Festival on October 20th. And I guess I'll let Dan talk a little bit about it, but it's meant to be very chill and very focused on the Main Street businesses, because so many of them have been just grinding for so many years. So this is meant to flood the district and hopefully get some people shopping and dining that night.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service on this committee. Just after listening to that discussion, I know you guys have to serve our community and think of all the needs. So thank you so much for your service. This is a fun party. It's a block party on Sunday, October 20. We're doing the east side and the west side of Main Street, not Chicago Avenue, but we'll have people safely getting neighbors who are celebrating this on Sunday, October 20th across the street. And the idea is a beer tent and kid-friendly activities, including, now this might scare some kids, but we're going to have a hayride, and the theme of the hayride is who stole the pumpkin. And so this is tragic because Halloween's right around the corner. So if you want to know who stole the pumpkin, come join the hayride. And we also will have face painting, and we'll have pumpkin painting. We're going to have an Amish toy maker, a sauna, some massages. We're going to we're also going to have a bandstand, so we'll have some really fun music. That's where really most of the cost, I think, is coming from. But this has been a collaborative effort between the businesses in the area and our Rotary Club and Dempster Mile. Also, Ridgefield Park District has been helping us, Evanston Latinos, and also Evanston Made. So our hope is on this day is to celebrate the opening of Main Street, but also have a fun contest. We are planning to bring back Custer Street Fair. Lighthouse Rotary, in collaboration with the same parties. And the idea is that we would like to rename the Custer Street Fair that happens in June. So the contest is out there. The winner will receive, who comes up with a really cool new name for the Custer Street Fair, a $100 gift certificate of Belgian chocolate. So it's kind of worth the contest. Put your ideas in. Anything else we should add?
No, just that Main Street is very grateful to Lighthouse Rotary for the concept of bringing back Custer Fair at its very best. Had approaching 100,000 people on Main Street, and we hope to rebuild that glory.
And in closing, of course, we can answer any questions or take comments, but I want to say thank you to both the City of Evanston and Highland Park, who collaborated on the safety aspect of our outdoor events. Of course, the 4th of July was so tragic, and I reached out to our mayor in Highland Park, and she so graciously opened up the peers to peers in our city of Evanston, and the chiefs talked to each other, the mayors talked to each other, the managers did, and we will make this a safe event. So that's overall something I just wanted to say, that I'm very proud that our city was able to take a look at this seriously and keep it safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful news. Can't wait. Okay, next, we got to vote, sorry. Roll call.
Or you don't need a roll call, just voice.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Terrific, that passes.
All right, I'll move item A9, beach pass distribution policy for
No,
students.
That was placed as
Oh,
an-
okay. My
an error,
apologies. Then
so
I'll
the
move
next one-
item A10, Resolution 46R24, authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Evanston Environmental Association.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Presentation. Do we have?
Do we need it?
It's,
I think we're ready to vote on it.
Okay. All right. Terrific.
Yep.
okay.
Okay. All in
Yep.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, that passes with unanimous support. And I believe
That's
that's the last item. So we'll
also
now
going to start in 5 minutes.
conclude the Administration Public Works Committee meeting at 6:05, and we'll start at 6:15.
6:10.
6:10? 6:10? Okay, we'll start City Council at 6:10. Thank you for coming this evening. Good night.